lyrics. And his voice is the worst voice that Esther has ever heard in her life. And so they're playing this music, and Esther is on the floor because she loves the music, and it is the funniest thing. And she said to Jerry, please find some way of making me laugh like this every day of my life. She laughed until she hurt. She cannot remember the last time she hurt so much from laughing. She used muscles. She said, we don't need to walk or exercise today. I have done it all in listening to this. And so what we're getting at, we want you to be able to in other words, this was a very well-meaning person that Jerry and Esther very well may co-create with someday on some level, because there is something so extraordinary. The potential is amazing, and the current reality is incredibly not amazing. And the contrast between them made for hysterical laughter. There's no possible way that anyone cannot win from this. In other words, there's no way that anyone can be diminished, and she doesn't have any old baggage that she's trying to clean up about it. She's just standing in this moment, feeling this extraordinary mix of energies, which is giving her a humorous ride, maybe the funniest ride she's ever had in her lifetime. And we want you to aspire to that. We want you to be able to stand back and look at things that have formerly seemed so very, very important, and just feel the hysterical laughter coming over you as you don the perspective of your inner being. Friends, we don't want to hurt your feelings, but we laugh about your lives like that all day, every day. You just make such big, hairy deals over things that just do not matter at all. In your forgetting of who you are, and in your taking so very seriously where you stand, you see. So
that's what, if you were in my shoes, you would reach for that rather than reaching for rage or reaching for frustration.
If you reach for rage, you'll go the wrong way on the emotional scale. We don't feel you anywhere near rage. We feel you perplexed a little bit. It feels more like disappointment than rage. And the inadequacy that you were describing is very mild. In other words, we think that it only comes up on the rare occasion that someone reminds you of how he used to make you feel.
Yeah.
We think you've mostly left that behind. And you're wanting to experience the freedom of not having to avoid, get ready for it, insecure people that bring it up in you.
Yeah.
Anytime you are interacting with someone who's tuned in, tapped in, turned on, in their wholeness, they will uplift you. If someone fosters insecurity in you, they're not tuned in, tapped in, turned on in the moment, and they're not a good mentor or model for you in that moment. So as you see that, as something caused you to feel that way, you just sort of have to shake it off and say, well, something there is reminiscent of something, and again, and I want to free myself of that. And then you start rambling in this way. This only comes up occasionally. And it's interesting to me when it does come up. And I'm going to start taking notice about what's happening when it does come up. Maybe I can sort of pinpoint something there. But I suspect that it has something to do with something that was fostered a long time ago, because I associate it with my father. And maybe I've been giving him too much responsibility about how I feel. And after all, he had no way of moving me up the emotional scale. I think we shouldn't have been dabbling in each other's lives quite as heavily as maybe I think we were. And maybe he wasn't dabbling in my life as much as I think he was. Maybe I think he wasn't dabbling in my life enough. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't live under his roof anymore. I am not responding to what he is telling me to do anymore. I am my own person. I am source energy in a physical body out here on the leading edge, living my own life, which has caused me to launch rockets of desires. And I have amassed a magnificent vibrational escrow. There is so much there for me. And the only thing that my life must be about is about me closing the gap on that which I have become. And I don't have to factor in what somebody else thought I should become, or what somebody else thought about what I did become. All of that is irrelevant. It is humorously irrelevant. And a little session like that where you've written and brought yourself to that place might be the only time you ever have to do that. But if it comes up 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 20 times, can you imagine if you take the time to do that exercise for 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 times, how much you'll clean up? And next time you see your father, you'll be vibrating in a whole different place. And now the people out there in the world who would look at you as he would look at you don't rendezvous with you, because law of attraction brings you with different looking eyes, you see. When people look at you, they're reflecting back a vibrational match. Jerry and Esther will go into a coffee shop or a restaurant sometimes along their trail, and Esther will say, "Did you feel invisible? I felt invisible." And we want to say to them, sometimes it's good when you're invisible. It means you're not on this wavelength. In other words, you don't want to relate with every person, every place, on every emotional scale. You want to set your own tone and let the universe match you up with things that match that, you see. And you have no responsibility to go back and clean anything up for any other reason than it's unpleasant if you don't. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think I'll clean this up because it feels better. Oh, so you're going to repair your relationship with your father? Probably, but that's not my goal. What do you mean it's not your goal? My goal is to feel better. Oh, you selfish person. Indeed, indeed. I'm so selfish that I want to align with the being that I have become. Because that won't get squirrely on me. That will always call me forward. That won't be fickle. That won't be based on insecurity. That won't be guidance that I can't count on. That's always guidance that I can count on. And if there's anything that your parents were ever guilty of, and all of them were, it was not being able to be your guidance. Let it go. They never were supposed to be that. We are complete.
I've got some career, health, and financial issues that I need a little bit of help. Thank God I'm the only one here.
Glad you've narrowed it down.
Yeah. I know I'm not doing what I should be doing as far as my work is concerned.
Meaning?
I'm a speaker. Right now I'm in sales, but I'm more of a speaker, and I need to get more into doing that.
Because?
Because I've got such a passion for it, and I know in the past talks that I've given how I have touched people.
What we want to hear you say is, I know I am not doing what I am supposed to be doing because I'm not having a joyful time doing it. And I know that when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, it will be joyful to do it. And you sort of kind of maybe said something similar to that. Part of what you said makes it sound like you have a responsibility to those who will benefit from it. And that's the uplifter in you who wants to uplift. And you have always and will always be that.
Yeah.
But you have to get hold of the idea that you're doing it because it feels so good to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's calling you. And when you get in sync with that flow, things will unfold more easily for you. We want to talk about this just at the beginning here with you, because this is so essential, and it is important to everyone, not just you. Think about going with the flow of anything and the ease and fun it can be. And think about the bucking of the current of anything and what a rougher ride that is. So when you realize that your life has caused you to set that flow in motion, and Source has become that speaker, that mentor, that joyful expresser, and is calling you toward it. And when you go with the flow, you soar. And when you hold yourself apart from it, you don't. But what we want you to hear is that you can go with the flow as you sometimes speak without going against the flow when you are doing other things.
Would you say that again?
You don't have to stop doing the salesman work that you're doing right now, this red hot minute, and just go with the flow of speaking. You just have to stop pushing against the things that you are doing, and the current is still calling you, you see.
The problem is, the person with whom I'm working, they say, if you do it, I'm going to fire you. Because I haven't been doing what I know I should be doing, I've had a lot of health issues, from a throat operation to a kidney stone, and then the day before Thanksgiving, I found out I have cancer. So I know, it's prostate, I'm going to be good, but it's...
Well, all of that...
I feel stuck and trying to make that transition, and also I have to have financial considerations.
But you see, it's that feeling of wanting to do something and not letting myself do it. So you're saying, I want to do this thing I cannot do. And then it's impacted further when you say, I want to do this thing and I'm told I will be fired if I do it. And so what we would do if we were standing in your physical shoes is attempt to close that gap. So you say, well, I want to be a speaker, and let's flesh that out a little more. In other words, let's say you're at work, you're doing something, it's all right, you're good at it, you're not having a particularly wonderful day, and maybe you feel a little extra pressure from someone who takes pleasure from being your employer and exercising a little control and power over you, and you, being the freedom-seeking being that you are, feels that, and you launch a powerful rocket of desire again that says, I want to be financially independent, and I want to work for myself, and I want to do what I feel I was born to do. And so you launch that rocket still further, but then you're standing there in that place that's apart from that. So as Esther is playing her games and you're playing your games, you can feel a big vibrational gap between where you are and where you want to be. So you stop and you say, well, what's the situation? Well, the situation is I feel stuck in a place that I need to be for financial reasons, and it's easier to stay here than to go somewhere else because I'm not ready to earn a living doing what I really want to do, and I don't want to do something else in the interim. And so not only do I feel stuck because I'm doing it to myself, but now I've got this other person saying, if you deviate even the slightest bit, it will be reason for me to fire you, which just makes me all the more eager to get out of here. And so the contrasting situation is that, and how I feel is stuck, how I feel is powerless, how I feel is angry, how I feel is all of that. And so what is it that I want? I want a gradual, comfortable financial transition from doing what I know how to do that earns plenty of money into doing what I love to do that will eventually earn plenty of money. I want this comfortable, gradual transition. And I doesn't seem like I can have this gradual transition because this person that I'm currently employed with is saying that it's impossible for me to have that gradual transition. And I'm furious because why would anyone seek control over what someone else does? I must be pretty good at what I do. Now we're working on closing the gap. The idea of me not being there must make this person feel a little threatened, and it may make this person feel like I'm cutting into their financial well-being. And I realized that there was a time when I was grateful to have this position, and it has served me extremely well. And I'm appreciating all that's come from it, and I'm appreciating how I've grown within it. And I've appreciated the win-win situation that it has provided both for me and for them. And I can understand why they would want me to stick around. And I want to find a way that I can let them know that I have benefited and that they have benefited and that I'm going to be around for a while. And universe, please bring me some words that I could say that would soften this just a little bit. And maybe if I don't get this thing so stuck in my craw where I'm pushing so hard against, maybe if I soften myself where I can see that I'm gradually moving on, and maybe universe, please bring to this employer an indication or things that make it so clear to him that no one ever stays anywhere, that it's all a passing parade, and help him to understand that what is needed will always come to him, just as what is needed for me will always come to me. And help me find a way to explain that I'm not planning on doing anything this red hot minute. I'm happy here, and maybe if I don't express my discord so much, he won't feel so threatened. As I get feeling better about what's coming for me, then I'll stop showing signs of being so dissatisfied satisfied, which will make him then feel less reason to offer the threat that sort of holds me here. And I know the right words will come to me, and it's conceivable that I could do what I'm doing on a part-time basis and still make as much money for all of us as I've been making while I do more and more of this other, so that I have this sort of buffer. And I'm looking forward to getting my feet wet. In fact, maybe I will use some of the psychology that I'm hoping to express to the world for their benefit in my own life experience. It will be fun to watch me apply these principles and watch all this smooth out. And anyway, there isn't anything that I have to do about it this red hot minute. In other words, I am well employed. Things are going well for me. I'm not ready to close that door anyway and go out on the circuit. Maybe I should explain that to him. Hey, this isn't anything I want to do anytime soon. This is something that I'm thinking about phasing gradually into and on a really part-time basis. And it's something that I believe would enhance not only my life, but your life too. And doesn't that feel better?
It does, yeah. But so she told me to cut it off. You know, that's that. I even had to sign papers. And I can't tell you the frustration. And right now with this...
Here's the thing that we want to point out, and you make it really easy to do that. It's a logical thing what you're saying. You're explaining how things are. And we don't care how they are, because we're over here where you want to be, calling you this way. So we just did a really good job of calling you this way. And you listened, you were very polite, and you listened. And then after we called and called and called and called and called, you essentially said, I'm not coming. And we weren't calling you from your employment. We weren't calling you into action of disobeying someone who has no right to demand anything of you in that way. We were not calling you into that. We were calling you emotionally. We were wanting to provide an emotional bridge that would make you see that maybe some possibilities will unfold. You see, we can see down the road for you, and we know that things are going to unfold and it's going to be just fine. And so from that knowledge, we're calling you. But because you can't see down the road as far as we can see down the road, you're questioning what might be out there. And so you're arguing for the limitations that seem to be very real, but just the same, you're arguing for them, and you're causing them to be activated in your vibration, which is making them real as far as you're concerned. The universe is giving you the inspired words, but you can't hear them. The universe is lining up things to help your employer understand that she could get by without you, but you can't hear that. Things are lining up, but they're zigging while you're zagging, because you are fixated on this extraordinary injustice. This is paramount to being in a situation where you have discovered your life's work and someone has chains around you saying, oh no, you're not going anywhere. And you feel like you've got to break loose of those chains. And what we want you to understand is all you got to do is go with the flow. No one can hold you against your will, but you're letting your perceived power of this person mess up your energy so you can't go anywhere, and then you're giving her all the credit for it, you see. It would be like someone saying to you, you can't go to the beach. And you'd say, well, I surely can. And they say, no, you can't go to the beach. I've decided I don't want you on the beach, and I'm going to watch you every day. And if you go to the beach, I'm going to hit you in the knees with this baseball bat. So you say, it could be painful to go to the beach. And as you look around and there's that person with that baseball bat, you start feeling increasingly resentful that you can't go to the beach. And then you think, well, they can't watch me 24 hours a day. I can go to the beach in the middle of the night. Or I can go to the beach when they're not looking, which is just increasing your determination, but it's also increasing the crevasse between where you are and where you want to be. And then you think, well, I can think about going to the beach, and I can remember going to the beach, and I can take pleasure in my mind about going to the beach, and there'll be no hitting me in the knees with the baseball bat, because they can see that my body is right here while my mind has gone to the beach. And what we're saying to you is, if you take your mind to the beach so often that you deactivate your awareness of this person with the baseball bat, law of attraction will cause circumstances to put separation between you and the person with the baseball bat. They will find themselves distracted from you. They will be called to things that are more a vibrational match to them, while you are called to things that are a vibrational match to you. And the person with the baseball bat becomes a non-issue in your life. but you've got to go to the beach in your mind, or they'll be right there with the bat. And when you get that, and you find the power of that and the clarity, you see what happens is when you go to the beach in your mind, so to speak, you close that gap, and now you're offering a singular signal. And think about what that signal is. That's the signal that life has caused you to launch into non-physical. That's the signal that source energy has embraced and become. That is a powerful signal. And now you, because you went to the beach in your mind, became one with that signal. Do you understand the power of such a signal? One scrawny, mean person has no power against that kind of power, you see? No one can prevent you from anything when you line up with it, but when you focus upon them, you're preventing yourself because you're splitting your energy and then giving them the credit. And that's how people like that feel powerful. They're just energy splitters, that's all. They're very good at convincing you to focus your mind in a way that splits your energy. Anyone that seems to have power over anyone, that's all they're doing. They're just dancing such a flamboyant dance that you can't get your eyes off of them. And because you can't get your eyes off them, you've got your energy split, and then you're not powerful. But it's not because you can't be, it's because you're focused in a way that's keeping you from your power.
Listen, man.
Thank you.
And everything else will fall into alignment because all of these physical symptoms are just what it feels like under those conditions. In other words, when your energy is split, that's what happens to your physical apparatus, but it's all temporary, all is well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, Abraham. I wanted to ask about this emotional scale. I've been working with it for a while, and the anger and the rage just are so uncomfortable. So it's much more comfortable to stay around in depression than to go through it.
You know what you're telling us, and we're glad you're telling this to us because it's important that we tell you what we're going to tell you because you told us that. If depression seems like a better choice to you than rage or anger because it's so uncomfortable, it means, without exception, clearly it means that you care more about how other people feel about how you feel than you care about how you feel. Because we know that depression feels so awful that you can hardly breathe, and that in rage and anger, at least you can get a breath. We know because we can feel the visceral body and the lightning of it. In other words, we know that it physically feels better to be mad than to be depressed. We know that. But you're not getting your feedback, it sounds to us like, from the way you feel. You've trained yourself to get your feedback from those that are looking on. And it's not uncommon, a lot of you. Your parents did it to you, and you did it to your kids, and your teachers are doing it. In other words, the man we talked to just now, his employer is doing it to him, saying, it's so important to me that you behave in a way that makes me feel good, and if you should behave in a way that makes me not feel good, then you will get negative repercussions. And those negative repercussions can go all the way from a dirty look to withholding something that you want to firing you or beating you up or killing you. In other words, there are extreme consequences, it seems, in this physical world if you don't mind those people who are so insecure that they have to wield their power over you in order to control your conditions in order to make them feel better. In other words, those people that need you to do something different so that they can feel better, you want to say to them, you are deeply troubled and I am not your solution. In other words, I can't stand on my head in enough different ways to make you feel better. And even if I could, I know that tomorrow you're going to see one over there and one over there and one over there and one over there. So you're still going to be miserable, and I'm going to be standing on my head. Haven't you found that? Haven't you stood on your head only to discover that you did everything they wanted you to do and they're still not satisfied with you? So you do another reformation and another and another and another and another, and they're still not happy with you. And finally you say, well, I think I'll just go someplace else because clearly I cannot do enough to myself to please you. And we say, you cannot, do not even try it. We're being really dramatic here, but we want so much for you to reach the place where you show yourself that the thought of anger feels better than the thought of depression. And that's your assignment. And of course, that's why we gave you that little earlier on disclaimer where you have to give a rip, not what no one thinks. And that's not easy to do when you've all of the days of your life been judging yourself by the way somebody else is feeling about you. It's not easy to let that go, but until you do, you're all in bondage. In other words, the only way you can be free is to be free of having to jump through all of their hoops. The only way that you'll ever be free is by knowing that you can close the gap and knowing that everybody else has their own gap to close and that you're not responsible for their gap. People talk about unconditional love as if they know what it is, while they're running around saying, these conditions make me feel bad. Unconditional love is being able to love no matter what the condition is because you have the power to focus in a way that keeps you in vibrational alignment with who you are. Conditional love says, you need to do things the way that makes me feel better. I look there and I like that. That makes me feel good. But I look there and that makes me feel bad. So that needs to change and be more like that. So let's make laws and let's get enforcers or I'll leave you because you don't make me feel good. And we say, no problem. You'll just find another one just like it because your vibration is what is bringing everything to you, you see.
I've heard you talk about the fact that our emotions are situational. In other words, in this arena of my life, perhaps it's easy to go to bliss, but then something comes up in another arena, and that's where I have the problem. That's
Good
where I
way
have
of
the
saying
sticking
it. They
point.
are situational. This situation and my attention to it is causing this emotion. It's about focus, isn't it? Because when I focus on something for as little as 17 seconds, I activate the vibration of it within me. And the longer I stay focused, the stronger that activation is. And once I stay focused for as little as 68 seconds, now law of attraction begins moving things that match it into my space.
So is it the same thing then when I'm dealing with anger? Can I move through anger that quickly?
Well, maybe yes and maybe no, but here's the thing we want you to consider. If you're in depression, and that's your vibrational point of attraction, things that come to you from that vibrational stance are much less pleasing than the things that come to you from the vibrational stance of anger. Depression, or that powerlessness, brings cancer, it brings injustice, it brings torture, it brings things that you would describe as